Good evening, beautiful people. Thank you for having me today and having me at the conference. It is my first time at EcoFarm, and I am overwhelmed with gratitude, with the love and joy that I've already been given. So thank you for that. Yat she Denisa Livingston in Ishia Kitachitni Nishin Tishitina e Bashishin, Oze Dina e Tachitni Dashache, Do Nanish Eja Tachitni Dashanella. Ayisident Nasha e Tedagon Wolya, Diokut Dianishila. I've just introduced myself in our Diné language. I like to recognize those of you that are here from the First Nations and the Indigenous people in the crowd, and my relatives and friends, and also those that are also streaming on live stream. And I also like to recognize and honor the land that we are on, and thank you to our elder who has given your wisdom and your knowledge and your time to be here with us. So tonight I just wanted to share with you, as I stand here, it's not just me standing here as Denisa, it is me and my community. I am the daughter of Irma Livingston and also the granddaughter of Jesse Harrison. And coming from a matriarchal society, I honor them and know that it's because of them that I'm standing here. It is my parents, my father, Dennis, and my mother, Irma, who is this very generation went to the boarding school age, who were cut, their hair were cut, and also they were not able to speak the language that I share with you today. And soap was put in their mouth because of the boarding school days, is this very generation. And it's also because of my grandma's resilience, as she has presented and testified before Congress 6 times in her lifetime, addressing the uranium contamination that we have faced. And my grandfather, her husband, died from direct contamination of uranium, of our people being hired by the US government to create the atomic bomb. And so I come with you with joy and gratitude, despite the injustices that we have faced, the legacy of injustices as Indigenous people, because what we have today is something very unique that we have created from our communities. And those of you that are aware of our work and the work that has been created with the community members, we stand here, and I say we because when we say I, that could mean illness, but we say we because we mean wellness. And at Diné Community Advocacy Alliance, we believe in Shana Dani Glingo As Ah Neldeto. And as you can see there written in Diné, that means let's live a long life. But as difficult as it may sound, it is just as difficult to implement. And I know if I ask you to repeat Shana Dani Glingo As Ah Neldeto, it may be very difficult for you. And it is just very difficult because we are facing a diabetes epidemic on our nation. And so as we come together, we are the voice of change, and we have been creating new roles for society that we are understanding and giving the understanding to our tribal leaders and our tribal members and our tribal citizens that as community members, we affect every area of our community. And this is a perspective sometimes that's not very well accepted across our communities. But we are now giving that voice and being that voice to create positive change. So as we advocate for our families, we know that everyone has a purpose. No matter their age, no matter where they're coming from, no matter their background, that sometimes we are invalidated as Indigenous people because maybe we don't have those certificates or titles or degrees. But we are strengthened by the ancestral knowledge that has existed for thousands of years, that I'm standing here and I'm a testimony of what I'm going to share with you tonight. And as we educate our communities about the realities, and these are pictures that I have taken over the years, that on the left side, we are addressing target marketing. And if you've ever been in this community of Shiprock, Tepidot, which behind this rock is another rock where I grew up, called Mitten Rock, Tedagon, like I said in my introduction, we see these advertisements that are contaminating our environment, the landscape, and the beautiful landscape of the Southwest and of Diné Nation. And on the right side, these are pictures that I've taken about 7 years ago that are still the same prices as we see. That a small bag of fruits and vegetables are very expensive, and people much rather have the right side or the left side of buying a can of Spam. But where did these foods come from? The US government sent our Diné people to a concentration camp in Bosque Redondo, and there salt, sugar, and flour was introduced into their diet for the very first time, and also canned foods were sent back as rations for them to survive. It was 150 years ago that from the long walk, Huilde, that our people were removed and then also allowed to return back, but this time with nothing. This is my grandmother on the left side. She's almost 90 years old, and I'm spending as much time as I can with her. She's holding so much knowledge and wisdom that we are uncovering, but it should not have to take 90 years to uncover what she's holding and reveal and wants to reveal to us. So in our moments of creating this time to create healthy change, we are ensuring that we are creating also opportunities of healing. How many of our ancestors, how many of our elders need moments of these times to be healed, to share, and to reveal? And so in our efforts of a Healthy Diné Nation, on the right side with one of our young, amazing leaders in our communities, we've been on the radio and also on social media. We've been writing scripts in Diné addressing this food apartheid. We used to say food deserts, but desert's an ecosystem. And this desert that we come from has life, and we respect that. And as we address the food here that exists on our Diné Nation is 99% unhealthy food, that we are writing scripts in Diné talking about something that has never existed in our diet, is that unhealthy food, otherwise known as junk food, quote unquote. But we learned that there's junk and there's food. And we also had to create the language to describe what junk food is in our language. And that's Chiyan Bijol. Chiyan in Diné means food, but Bijol means the oppressive. It means the prison food, the fast casual food, the fast food, the unhealthful food, the contaminated food, the disruptive food. And as we sage Iyan Bijol in creating something that's never been created to address and to help our people to understand the history and the present of what we're doing and where we're going, we're creating these scripts in Diné, and it's broadcasted over 6 radio stations. And some people have commented that we are now the health code talkers. And this is something that is so empowering to our communities, that it's not only the scripts that we are writing, it's not only the history that we are addressing, but also being the visionaries of the future that we want to create for the next 7 generations, for our people to come, that we know that we have a responsibility. And so what we do and what we've been doing over these past 2 years since 2012 is doing Zumba. And some of you have seen us on social media. We were the first group to go to tribal council and do Zumba in front of the council chamber. So as serious as all of this, we have a lot of fun. And this is the way to capture those that maybe not are particularly interested in authoring legislation or supporting a piece of legislation, but really just to know what that healthy environment looks like and to be positive. So we've been doing a Healthy Diné Nation Zumba Tour de Res. And at these events, we ensure that there's fresh fruits and vegetables, fruit-infused waters, and giving that experience to our youth and also to community members. We have grandmas coming up to us and said, I would never come to a Zumba event, but it was because of my grandchild that wanted to come. And our tribal leaders that stand outside of the tribal council chamber and say, this is club music, but then it changes the atmosphere of the tribal council, that there's more vibrancy, there's positivity, And there's just something in the air that when you hear that music and when you know that that health is coming alive, that it's active in us, it gives us a different feeling and we're more resilient. And this is, these are the pictures from this past tour that we had this past year. And so we're looking forward to doing more Zumba events across the Navajo Nation. We are the size of West Virginia, so we want to hit as many communities as we can. We have a Diné DJ, we have Diné MCs, we have Diné Zumba instructors, and really the community comes out and we dance. So I'm really looking forward to Friday. And so the creativity of addressing what we have passed, and it's been since 2011, since the inception of this, from our elders and our advocates, is that these are the four main areas that we've been addressing. But really, we've been known for passing the first junk food tax in the US. And even the definitions of junk food at the time, there were no scientific definitions of junk food. And so we originally called the legislation the junk food tax, but as we were researching and uncovering that there were no descriptions or no definitions, we wrote all those definitions. And this is something that as community members, that we are leveraging community currencies, that the time and the talent and the skill of our community members as volunteers, that we're able to create something that has never been done before. And so addressing Ian Bijol, knowing that this unhealthy foods tax will create community wellness projects, that this is an opportunity for us to pass something. We had a lot of criticism coming from public health professionals nationally that what is a 2% tax gonna do? But we knew that that 2% tax, an additional tax to the current taxes in most areas on Navajo, was gonna be exponential. That was our belief. We wanted to pass a 5% tax, eventually increase that every year, but the council at that time voted that it would be 2%. In a sister legislation, we eliminated tax on healthy food. So at that time, we were being charged 5% for healthy food. So we decided also to introduce a bill that would exempt healthy food of the sales tax across Navajo. And this was with an emphasis on the cultural foods. So our blue corn, our white corn, our sumac, the juniper ash, all of these foods would be tax-free. So to this date, this is how much money we have raised. And this money from that 2% tax, and this is at partial compliance. And imagine at full compliance what this would look like from a 2% tax. And this is something that, according to the narrative that's usually shared in the media, sometimes the entirety is not shared. I seen the recent Denver tax that was passed to raise funds for community food cooperatives, and it acknowledged Berkeley, acknowledged Philly, acknowledged San Francisco, and all the work that has been done through these municipalities, but it did not recognize the Navajo Nation. As Indigenous people, the narrative that comes out should not only be about the ownership, but also about the authorship, that we're the ones telling the stories, that we're the ones bringing the perspectives to the table, that we're invited to these spaces. And so I urge you to get online and share what we're doing and ask questions, send emails, call us, and message us, because we have created something in a model that should be duplicated and that can be duplicated. So as we work with our Navajo Nation government, we are tribal citizens that are mostly volunteers, and we are dealing with every area of ensuring that the revenue gets to our 110 Navajo chapters for community wellness projects. And as a grassroots organization, sometimes our position is not very well accepted and supported, because maybe we are not a tribal employee, or we don't have those titles, or we don't operate by those titles. but we teach that we should be a leader without a title. And this is important as we are one of the very few grassroots organizations that have been participating in tribal governments and also consulting with other tribal governments to lead something similar. And in our work, we are focusing that this authorship and ownership and the creativity should stem from the community members. That in public health, we should not be telling our communities what they need. They should be telling us what they need. That it's up to all 110 Navajo chapters to create the program that they need and create the program that will address their social and physical environment. And that it's not only about health, but it's also about wellness. One of the youth commented on this picture and said that their basketball goal was as old as their grandma. And their basketball goal, they needed maintenance, you know, they needed funds, and the revenue does allow for the improvements and maintenance of this. And this is something that the community members want. And in our work, we did not have the data to show that as Diné people, as Indigenous people, what taxation looked like. But from the stories from our elders, we learned that taxation is nothing new to Indigenous communities. That as Diné people, that we were already taxing ourselves years before to survive. And in our townships on the Navajo Nation, that there are already taxation and different types of taxes that we've been doing all this time. So it was nothing new. And the narrative that goes out is that, you know, us as Indigenous people, you know, what should we say about taxation? Should we even have a say about it? But we're exercising sovereignty even at the kitchen table. That through these community wellness projects that we're able to leverage even $1, $5, what does that look like, $100, and ensuring that our community members and our chapters are aware of what we are doing and what we're encouraging them to do. And as we are addressing the change in our communities and allowing them to be a part of what is very critical on our land and also in Indian country is really to create something that's never been created and to recycle currency that has never before been done. And historically, food was our currency. But now we're recycling the dollar and we're recycling that back into our communities and creating this revenue. And so these are the types of projects when it comes to practicing sovereignty on the table, but it's also practicing sovereignty in the chapters so that we're able, that what we're doing at our kitchen table, what we're doing at our community table is very important. Although there's opposition, you know, against the work that we're doing from all levels, is that these ideas, and people have called us a dreamless, that the communities are able to accomplish what they need in their areas, and knowing that we support them, knowing that we can facilitate trainings and help them to understand, help our people to understand what health and wellness is. So it's something that we have drafted, something we have worked together as community members, and it's something that we've been very proud of, but it's taking all of these years, since 2011 to now. And one of the biggest things is that we're training the youth and helping the youth to advocate. One of the youth groups that we work with is the Natani Youth Council from the Navajo Preparatory School in Farmington, New Mexico, is that we're helping the youth to understand their role, that they have a role, that their purpose is very critical to the future. And so as we address our tribal council and learn about the challenge of us being there as grassroots people, because our Navajo Nation government is a duplication of the US government since 1989. But how did we govern ourselves previously? And as we address the challenge that has come up to us is that we were told that we didn't have a right to be at the council chamber, that we didn't have the right to author legislation. And the unhealthy foods tax, the Healthy Diné Nation Act, was an over 300-page piece of legislation. And as we uncovered the fundamental laws of the Diné, that our leaders should have been supporting us, that our leaders should be the ones as stewards to protect us and to protect the health. And we were not able to do a referendum because according to the Navajo Nation statute is that whenever it is a public health issue that, that the council had to vote on it. So as we step forward and really setting the example of health leadership, we are now changing the roles and ideas and lifestyles of our current tribal leaders. And this is something that is very important because we have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And the network that we have in our Diné communities and across Indigenous communities is the clanship. People come up to us and ask about creating something like this in municipalities. It takes effort to get to know someone, to recruit someone to your organization. But in our clanship, everyone's related, that we already have a network built and we can leverage off of that. In the same way as data travels by the speed of trust. And this is sometimes, difficult, but our leaders are beginning to understand now the value of what we're doing. And this is one of our leaders, Mr. Danny Simpson, who was our original sponsor of the bills and continues to be a leader for us. And he has lost about 70 pounds, and this is him at the recent Zumba event. And you have never seen him like that before. And I really appreciate those of you that came to our workshop today, Advancing Equity in Ag, and we talked about this picture, about what resistance means, about what it is to involve yourself in a movement to resist. And as our youth are growing up and knowing that we confide in them, that we have trust in them, that they're learning that their resilience is bright, that their resilience is shown through their smiles, that they make the effort to want to be healthy. And many people say, a junk food tax, it's not up to you to tax your people. I said, if it wasn't up to us, and if we had the choice, we don't have a choice right now. There's a 99% junk food atmosphere there. We don't have a choice. And this is a wake-up call for all of us to ensure that our Indigenous youth will have an opportunity of a healthful future. And so what we've been also doing, some of you have received our newsletters this evening, is we are doing citizen journalism. And we are featuring stories from the community members that are changing their ways. And this is Darren Sells from Shiprock, New Mexico, who has only trained at his home, did not go to a gym, became a part of the Spartan race. And our community members who are growing their own foods, who are vegan, who are vegetarian. And Eudora Claw, who is on the right side, who leads the Native Women Outdoors. And we are featuring community members who are creating change. And this distribution goes through the Navajo Times, about 17,000 copies to 20,000 copies. And one of the things that we're doing, and like I have mentioned, this is my grandma. And we did a story about her, and one question turned into 3 hours of interviewing. And it is very insightful what she shared. And she knows that I travel, she knows that I'm doing work similar to what she's done, and that as we address uranium contamination on our land, that through her work and through her advocacy and her role modeling, that we're able to learn about her life through the pictures that she's drawing. I returned from the Indigenous Law Conference one time last year, and went to visit her just quickly, and she showed me a picture. She said, I drew this. And I had that only one chance with my cell phone. I took a picture, and this was the picture that I would take, and later we would interview her about what these foods were. And one of the things that she never told us about was this food, this nano yeshe. It's a type of batter that is created from corn, and it is baked on top of the fire with no utensils, with no pot or grill. And I said, Grandma, why don't you show this to us? Why don't you show us how to make this and these foods that we have never seen, never heard before? And people across the Navajo Nation were commenting back about how they've never heard these, that their grandmas talked about something similar. But it should not have to take 90 years to share something. We have to create those healing moments for our communities and our elders so that we can all grow, so that we can all learn about our purpose in moving forward. And so one of the things, as I'm almost done here, is that we're also revitalizing our language. And so with my mother and also some of our advocates and my grandma, we're creating these word puzzles in Diné. It is very challenging. So if you want to take a stab at it, you have those newsletters, please feel free. But it's very exciting because it's something that has never also been pursued. And as we work with organizations that support us and also leverage our voice and help us to grow and believe in us as grassroots organizers, that we are finally, after all these years, that we are finally doing a video project, and that's going to be coming out soon, so watch out on social media as we're going to be featuring the voices, and we've been interviewing over the holidays about our stories. And so this is something that we're very excited about because that narrative from us has to be shared, and we have to be able to share that. And another thing that we're working on is our visibility campaign. To access the billboards on our nation has been a very difficult process. It's taken us over 1 year to create one billboard. And this is what's going on the billboards. And signs across the Navajo Nation, and reminding and also advocating for the enforcement and compliance of our laws, that our people should not be paying tax on healthy food, that healthy food is life, healthful food is life. That wholesome, healthful, indigenous food is life. And so as you go through Navajo, you may be seeing these signs. And as we move forward with our Turtle Island Association of Slow Food that we created several years ago with our honorary founder, Winona LaDuke, who said, Denisa, you're going to lead the charge on this and that. And when Winona tells you something, you better do it. So that's why I'm standing here too. And as we move forward and explore gastronomy and taste education, that we should not have biodiversity in our farms, but also on our plate, but also on our palate. That we have to remember we also had to reprogram our tongue. We also have to teach our young folks about the different spices and foods and explore that. And so we hold taste education workshops. We cook together. We create 9-course tastings from all the countries we've been exploring, from India to Italy to Kenya, in different areas, and bringing this to our communities. Because when something does not exist, when you cannot drive down the road to get Thai food or Indian food, that you have to create these opportunities for our communities. And so as we look forward, and as our work with Slow Food International continues, we really are looking forward to elevating and supporting our Indigenous brothers and sisters worldwide. And as we move worldwide, we've created an Indigenous Terra Madre network. And this is something that is growing, that we will be able to support our brothers and sisters and leverage their work and allow them the space, allow them to be in this role and opportunity to share their stories and to be able to network and build together something that has never been created. And as we move forward, our sisters here have shared the taste of reindeer. And our Sami sisters have been doing this for years, that they're addressing migration, that they're creating opportunities so that our youth are not migrating from the rural areas to the urban areas, that they're bringing leadership and also education into their communities so that their reindeer herders can, and youth can be growing as reindeer herders and remain committed to their role and their purpose there. And as we learn from other Indigenous brothers and sisters, it is very important for us to open up our hearts, open up our minds, and know previously that we used to say that we're the descendants of our ancestors. Looking back, that it's because of my mom, my grandma, my family that I stand here. But now we look forward and take the responsibility that we are the ancestors of our descendants. That we have to say that and internalize that when we say that, we should get the chills, because now we have a responsibility to create a healthful future for everyone, and especially the children, and especially those who have not been born. And so one of my sisters here from Kenya, my Maasai sister, read my speech at the recent Terra Madre in Italy. And this is something that we need to remember, that we need to pass on the world and a legacy to our children and to the next generations. And so remember that the future is in our hands. Remember that as Indigenous people, we are resilient, that we are strong, that despite the legacy of injustices, that we are protectors. And so I honor all of my brothers and sisters that are here in the room. If you're from First Nations, can you please stand? Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having us here. And remember that as Indigenous people, we are still here. Ahihat.